for Mara Wilson, everybody. Looking stunning. And I hope you know that we chose that entrance theme just for you.
Yes, they were telling me.
Yes, we've been living our Mrs. Doubtfire fantasy for a very long time.
They were telling me, they were like, oh, you'll like the song that we picked for you. You'll like the song. So, yeah.
I think our videographer was like, if she doesn't remember or doesn't get it, I'll be really sad.
Oh, I get it. I get it. Believe me, I get it.
Well, speaking of getting it, you are such a delight, and I'm so excited to speak with you because I'm such a fan.
Yeah, thank you.
And first of all, I might commend you on the fact that whenever I see you, she's dressed so stylishly. Round of applause.
Thank you. I mean, you would never know that my luggage was lost, right?
No. I mean, girl comes like a movie star, and we appreciate that so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
How's the Comic-Con been for you so far, other than the lost luggage?
It's been wonderful. I mean, Newcastle is beautiful. It's a lovely tune. Yeah, it really is. And the people here are some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And I've had wonderful food and just loveliest people and sweet fans and kind. It's just loveliness. Everybody is just so lovely. And I'm having a wonderful time.
Yes. Not your first time in the UK, right? Because I've seen you with Monopoly before.
Not at all. Not at all. But this is the furthest north that I've ever been.
Oh, wow.
Except for Scotland. Anyone from Scotland? Yeah, some Scots in the house. You're wearing your Scottish pride shirt.
Scottish
AF. Yeah, but it's definitely, this is my first time in the north of England, and I've been having a wonderful time. This is a beautiful, beautiful part of the world, so yeah.
When you do Comic-Cons and when you're on location for films and things like that, do you get a chance to actually go soak up some culture, see some things, or do you make it a point to now?
I try to. I definitely try to. I hate it when I can't. I asked if I could come a little bit early so I could look around because, I mean, and somebody said to me, I met a man here, he had a very cute dog, and he was like, oh, so where are you from then? And I said, I'm from California. He's like, why are you here if you're from California? And I mean, yes, okay, it's warm in California, but also in California we don't have any buildings that are older than, 40 years old. So the fact of living in a town with a castle blows my mind.
Yeah.
So that's something that's very exciting and very exotic to me.
Yes.
And so is the rain. So I've had a wonderful time. And yeah, I always try to take some time to go. I mean, that's the way that it was because, you know, my family, we couldn't have afforded to go on holidays to London, to Spain, to Tokyo, to the places we went when I was a child. But we could when we were working there. So my dad would sometimes say, oh, can we maybe fly economy so Mara can take the rest of her family? And we would do that, and they would get to have a little holiday, too.
That's so nice. Nice perk of the job. And yeah, it never gets old here in England. The architecture, beautiful, and Newcastle's a really good time. But let's talk about, I mean, I don't even know where to start with your illustrious career. I genuinely don't because I've grown up watching all of your films, and I feel like I've grown up with you, weirdly. That made it weird. But anyway, I could start by, you know, your childhood fame and how that went, but let's start with something current.
Yeah.
You are a published author. Round of applause for that.
That's true. Thank you.
Your book, Where Am I Now? Let me see if I get this right. True Stories of Girlhood and Accidental Fame. Is that right?
Yes.
Tell us about the book and how that came about.
So I always wanted to be a writer. I always knew. I mean, one of the reasons that I got into acting was because I liked to tell stories. So I just wanted to tell stories about my life and about the things that I saw. And, you know, whatever book I happened to be reading at the time, that would always influence the way that I wanted to write. And that was something I always wanted to do. But as I got older, I started doing this thing called live storytelling, where you would get up in front of a crowd and you would tell stories from your life. And sometimes they were very silly things that had happened to me, like times I'd embarrassed myself in front of people, sometimes embarrassed myself in front of famous people on film sets, sometimes I just gotten in trouble with my parents. But a lot of people did that, especially when I lived in New York City. And I loved doing that, and I eventually had so many stories about my life that people all started asking me, oh, do you want to write more about your life? Do you want to do this? And I always knew that I wanted to write something. And in fact, in college I was doing, or university, sorry. In university I was doing a lot of playwriting. And I loved that because I like eavesdropping on people. I like listening to other people's conversations, so I liked writing dialogue. But then I started writing more about my life, and I thought, I feel like I have to write this before I write anything else. So that's where Am I Now came from. And it came because, you know, every now and then, if you are a child actor or you're a young actor or even an adult actor who isn't in the public eye, the media for a while, people will start writing these things about you, like, where is she now? Where are they now? And so my editor thought, how about Where Am I Now as a title for your book? And I thought, that's perfect. And yeah, it's a memoir of my childhood.
Very cool. And at least it's you telling your own story.
It is,
as opposed to clickbait articles, right?
Exactly. That was my thing, is I wanted to tell my own stories. I also recently published something as a short ebook and audiobook called Good Girls Don't. That's available through Scribd, Scribd. Yeah, that recently came out, and that is about something that I feel like a lot of people, probably particularly women, can relate to, which is about being forced to be a good girl. And having to, every time I mention that to a crowd, I always see some women being like, yep. But the having to be a people pleaser and having to do that and trying very hard, too hard perhaps, to try to be good.
Yeah. Well, again, all these movies are coming to me, Matilda, Mrs. Doubtfire, so many favorites. What is it like working with Hollywood greats like Danny DeVito, like Robin Williams? Do you have any memories of working with such legendary actors?
I do. I mean, I was so young when I got into this that I don't think it fazed me. I think when I got a little bit older, it might have been like, oh my gosh, I'm working with this person, I'm working with this person. Like, I remember meeting Didi Khan after I saw Grease and being like, I'm working with Frenchie from Grease, I'm working with Frenchie from Grease. But when I was 5, 6, like, I knew Robin Williams as the genie from Aladdin, but he was wonderful. I'm very fortunate to say that most of the people I worked with were really nice. He would make little hand puppets that talked. He'd just like, I don't like you, you smell like poop, which I was 5 years old, so I thought that was hilarious. And he would make his carpet bag bark like a dog. He could also be kind of shy sometimes, especially with adults, but with kids, kids are the best audience. And anytime he had an audience, he just came alive. So, and then Danny DeVito was like a fun uncle to me and really took care of my family in sometimes when we were really struggling. And I used to love to go over to his house because he had the ultimate kid paradise house. He had a trampoline, he had a pool and a hot tub, and he had a little, guest house in the backyard that they turned into a movie theater. So we would go there and we would watch stuff like, I remember us watching like Oliver and Company, Twister, like whatever movies that he could get. And he had pinball machines, and they had secret passageways in the house. The house literally had secret passageways built into it. So if you can imagine, can you imagine what it was like to have somebody like that throw you a birthday party? He threw me a birthday party, and actually the cake was in the shape of Matilda's red hair ribbon.
How cute.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, guys,
so he spoiled me, if you couldn't tell.
That's great. Love to hear that. So, guys, I could fangirl all day, but let's get to you guys. I'm sure you have a lot of questions for Mara. Just raise your hand. And Aaron, who is just too Scottish to function. We love Aaron. Give it up for Aaron, everybody.
Aaron!
Representing Scotland. And we'll go to this gentleman right here with a question. Hi.
So, Mara, what would you say to Matilda doing a crossover with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Oh my gosh, I haven't even thought of that. I did think it would be fun to be on Always Sunny just because, it's such a rude show. And it's funny because Danny DeVito plays these rude characters and these, obnoxious characters, but in reality, he's very, very sweet. And his daughter is even on that show. I didn't think of that, but I think that would be really funny. And, it's funny because I recently went to an event where I saw Glenn Howerton, who plays Dennis on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I was tempted to go up to him and say, hi, you don't know me, but we have the same dad. But I got too shy, so I didn't. But that would have been fun, right?
Yeah. That's a crossover.
Yeah.
Out of every scene you did as a child, what would you say is the most fun and memorable?
My most fun memory? Let's see. My gosh, I have so many fun ones. I think one of my favorite scenes to film probably was chasing Miss Trunchbull out of the school. We were just throwing things at her, and it really was like we were having a food fight, essentially. So that was very, very fun. And also, all the scenes at the end with Embeth, who played Miss Honey, we really did have fun just doing things, and they would put on music in the background. Matilda was probably the most fun to film, although Thomas was very fun to film, too. And yeah, probably I have a lot of funny memories from Matilda, and I remember one is that we were eating chocolates in one scene, and I picked up a chocolate, and Danny was yelling directions to us, and he said, feed each other. And I looked at the chocolate, and I was very sad because I wanted the chocolate that I had just gotten. And so I gave it to Embeth, and she reached over, and I bit into hers that she gave me, but it was one of those ones filled with cherry juice. And so cherry juice exploded all over me, and they had to call cut and put me in a different outfit. So that was a fun memory, even though it was, a little bit sticky and gross.
Awesome. Got a question. Just raise your hands, guys. There we go. Oh, he's getting those steps in. Thank you, sir.
What was it like playing Matilda?
It was wonderful because it was a character that I really, really loved. I mean, she was. Have you read the book Matilda? Yeah, I bet you have. I mean, who doesn't love Matilda, right? I think she's one of my favorite characters ever. So I was so excited when I played her. And the thing was, actually, when we first got the script, my agent wasn't sure that I would want to do it. So she said, oh, yeah, we got a bunch of scripts. And I said no to some of them. She was like, there was this one, there was this one, there was this one, there was Matilda. And my mom said, whoa, 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 Matilda, give us the script for Matilda. We want to be in Matilda. And so I went on, what they call a call or an audition, which is where you meet with the director and you say the lines, the things you're supposed to say in the movie, and then they see if they want you for that part. And Danny DeVito told me, he said, I knew I wanted you for Matilda from the moment you walked in. And I think that maybe what he could tell was that I really loved the character. And that's what really comes through, is that I really loved that character and I really wanted to be her. And I still consider myself lucky for having had the chance to be her.
And we're lucky that you were her. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Any thoughts on the musical, by the way?
I mean, I'm not involved in the musical, but I saw it on Broadway a few years ago, and the actresses in it were all absolutely wonderful and so cute. And I've done some shows with Leslie Margarita, who played the original Mrs. Wormwood, or at least the original American Mrs. Wormwood, I think. I'm not sure if she was on the West End, but she was so fantastic, and we took pictures of with each other because, of course, we had to. And I met one of the little Matildas at a show once we did together, and I was like, hi, I'm Mara. And she's like, oh, we know who you are. You're a fellow Matilda. Yeah. And we hugged and we took pictures together. And yeah, it was absolutely an adorable experience.
Wonderful. We've got a question right here.
What advice would you give for young actors?
What advice would I give to young actors? That's a really good one. I think that there's a lot of things that I would say. Do you mean like to get ahead in the career, or do you mean just like in general? I think that you should always try, one of my friends says, work on things you like with people you love. That's the thing, because if you are able to do that, then you will have fun no matter what. You don't need to worry about fame. You don't need to worry about any of these things. A lot of people like to be famous, and yeah, it can be nice, but it can also be kind of difficult sometimes. So try to do things that really speak to your heart and are really fun for you, and really be in the moment and enjoy it. Sometimes I talk to people who are in, the production of Matilda the musical at their school, and I say to them, look, being part of Matilda is something you're going to remember for the rest of your life. Just focus on the memories, focus on the joys, and acting is all about being in the moment. So it's really all about being in the moment and enjoying that and, becoming a different person and having fun. So try to do that, and also always work with people that you really care about, and don't wait for other people necessarily to give your job. Have friends that, you make movies with. And maybe they'll be silly and they'll just be fun memories someday. I have movies like that I made with my friends when I was young. But, also some people made movies when they were kids and now they're Steven Spielberg. So you never know. I think just try to remember the fun in it no matter what you do.
Beautiful advice. Round of applause for that.
Thank you.
Very uplifting. We've got a question here on the right.
Hi. Out of all the movies that you've done, which was your favourite? Which one did you like to do the best?
I think Matilda was probably the most fun to do, although, Doubtfire had a lot of wonderful experiences as well, I think, especially with Robin. But one that some of you might know, Thomas and the Magic Railroad, that was super fun. And we filmed a lot of that over here. We filmed a lot of it on the Isle of Man. But, my family growing up in Southern California, which looks like a desert, we'd never seen, fields of heather like you see in the Isle of Man. But we had a lot of fun filming that one, too. Michael Rogers, who was in it, was absolutely fun and fantastic to be around. And it was really fun. I was lucky. We had a really good crew on that one. But probably to watch, I still think Mrs. Doubtfire is funny, and Matilda is also very funny to watch, too. So those are probably my favorite two to watch.
Question here on the right. Hiya.
Hey, guys,
Hey.
don't wave at me, wave at him. Because he's the guy. I can't
got the
choose
mic.
you, he chooses you.
Hey, obviously you mentioned before about like being annoyed with falling into the stereotype of being like the good girl and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, like taking into account that you were like a child actor, is there just been any time where you were just like completely rebellious on set and just couldn't be bothered and got told off by maybe like Hollywood greats or anything like that?
That's a good question. I don't think I was ever told off by anybody, but there definitely were times that I rebelled. My rebellions were usually very silly, though. Like, there was one time that I wouldn't stop chewing gum while we were filming. And they were like, Mara, get rid of the gum. And it was because, you know, I was costing them a lot of money by ruining takes. And I don't think I realized that. And I actually wrote about that a little bit in my book, Good Girls Don't. But I think that everybody rebels in different ways. And for me, it was a lot more being frustrated with myself. And this is something that probably a lot of people can relate to. You know, when you can turn a lot of frustration in on yourself, and that can turn into anxiety, that can turn into depression, things like that. That stuff is incredibly hard, and it's not good. It's not good for yourself. And I think really the cure for that is finding the things that genuinely ground you, genuinely make you happy, and finding the people that genuinely understand you and know you and love you and forgive you, I think. But yeah, there was a lot of chewing gum. There was a lot of chewing gum, and there was a lot of pulling pranks. I will say that we pulled a lot of pranks on people. One of the most fun things to do, and I did this on every set I was on, is they use clothespins all the time. So everybody goes around trying to sneak clothespins on people, especially sometimes you'll write something on there. And Embeth actually did a prank once with me where she took a plate and she put water on it and then she put a hair on it. And she said to somebody, look, there's a hair on here and I think it's growing. And they were like, what are you even talking about? And then she went like this. They'd go like this to lean in and she'd go, bam, and the water would splash up and hit them in the face. So yeah, Miss Honey taught me how to prank people.
That's a Comic-Con exclusive right there. We've got a gentleman right up here with a question.
What was it like working with Richard Attenborough? Was it really like Santa?
Oh, he really was. He really was. Sir Richard was like he was like Santa to me. And sometimes I would say things like, I would be like, I wish I had a kitten. And he would be like, oh, really? You know, he was very, very sweet, very, very kind. And he felt like Santa Claus, very gentle. He was good with children, I think. And I mean, if you look at him and you look at, you know, Sir David Attenborough, the two of them, I think, really understood how to talk to people and how to communicate things to people. And that is so important. I was really lucky. I worked with a lot of people like him, like Chris Columbus, like Robin Williams, like Danny DeVito, like Britt Allcroft, who knew how to talk to and work with children and wanted to make things that children wanted to watch.
Yeah, very well said. Oh, we have a gentleman here on the right. Hello.
Hey, Mara.
Hey.
My question is, what is your greatest memory of working alongside Robin Williams?
Oh, let's see. Probably, let's see, there was the time we were filming the petting zoo scene where with all the animals, and I remember Robin we had a pony, and he took some oats, and he put the oats in his hat, and he fed it to the pony. And so the hat, he took the hat away, and the hat was full of pony slobber and oats and like maybe even some like grass that the pony had eaten earlier. And then he turned to me and he said, do you want to wear it? And I made a face, and I couldn't stop laughing, and so they had to call cut because, you know, he made me laugh too hard. But he was always doing things like that. He was always, you know, laughing a little bit, or making me laugh a little bit, and playing, you know, silly jokes and things like that. So I think it's little things like that, the stories that he told, that always made me, you know, completely adore him and really look up to him.
Beautiful, thank you. Another question up here.
What was your favorite line you ever got to say on camera?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure. I mean, I was very nervous to say the bad word to Mrs. Doubtfire, so it's not that. I was so afraid. Like I said, I wanted to be a good girl. I was afraid I was going to get in trouble to say that. But probably, let's see. I'm trying to think of some of my lines. It probably has to be something from Matilda. It might have been No More Miss Nice Girl, but I think that for me it was probably less about the actual lines that I said and more about like the faces that I made and the things that I got to do in that. So yeah, that's a hard one. I'm gonna have to think about that one. If it hits me, I'll let you know, or I'll let you know.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So you were saying earlier, obviously, that you sometimes would get like loads of scripts and you would like push them, you didn't want to do them. Was there any films that came out that were like successful, or even not successful, that you had the script for and turned down?
Oh, yeah.
That you sort of regretted afterwards?
All the time. I mean, some of them I don't think I would have been good in. Like, I remember I got the script for Donnie Darko, but I was too old. They wanted me to play the little sister, and I was too old for it anyway. The Parent Trap, I was too young for that. What else? Let's see. Arrested Development. I was about to go away to school, so I wasn't able to do that. In fact, my friend Mae Whitman, who some of you might know from from a lot of things, from Scott Pilgrim, from I'm trying to think, from The Duff, from Avatar.
Day.
I'm sorry.
One Fine Day as well.
From One Fine Day. From Avatar. She's in everything. Yeah, I always joke that she would get the parts that I wouldn't get. And so, yeah, I think there were a lot of things out there, but you kind of have to look and be like, well, the right person got hired for that job. And every now and then I'm like, oh man, I wish that one had been me. But most of the time I'm like, you know what? They had a great experience doing that, and good for them.
So right now I could see you playing Miss Honey in a Matilda reboot. So if you could cast yourself in any film, in any role right now, where would Mara cast herself?
That's a good question. I don't really think I'm much of a Miss Honey. That might be because the past couple years I've been doing a lot of voiceover, and as you can tell, I have a pretty low voice. So I've been playing, and when you have a low voice, a lot of times you play evil characters. Like on Big Hero 6, I was the enemy. I was the bad guy on Big Hero 6, the series. One person I would really like to work with is Rian Johnson. Maybe controversial, but I love his stuff so much. I love Karina Longworth. He did Knives Out. He's done a bunch of things that I think, Poker Face. I would love to work with him. I think he would be really fun to work with.
Great question. Got one over here on the left.
Hi.
Hi.
I just want to know, is it weird knowing that majority of the world grew up watching you?
I'm sorry?
Is it weird that majority of the world grew up watching you? Do you find it strange?
I mean, I think that when I was young, I kind of didn't even realize it. I didn't realize it when I was young. I thought that, you can't really think about that when you're young. So it didn't mean as much to me, I think, when I was little. I kind of took it for granted. Now, it feels so big sometimes that I'm kind of overwhelmed, but not in a bad way. Overwhelmed in a just... Like, it's amazing to me to think, and my family has had to tell me, they've said, look, you've changed so many lives. You helped so many people. I mean, Matilda is, when I'm having a bad day, one of my brothers will say, like, look, Matilda's like a saint to people, to children who are neglected or children who are bullied. And so that, I think, it can be a little strange sometimes, especially when people say things to me like, oh, you're still little Matilda to me. That's a little bit like, like your mom's friends being like, I remember when you were this big. Or people will say like, oh, you look the same or you look different. I'm like, thanks, I think. So sometimes it can be a little hard, and sometimes I have to be careful about like, my own behavior because, and I mean, I'm not somebody who acts out a lot. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't smoke, I don't do any of those things. And it's really just not my thing. But it is sometimes a little bit of pressure to be like a role model because there are still kids out there who really like my stuff. And for example, if I'm in anything that is like mostly for adults, I don't think children should see it. I want it to be very different, very separate. It can be pressure sometimes, but honestly, it's a compliment. It's something that I feel very lucky to have.
Wonderful. We're going to go all the way up at the top here in the middle. There we go.
How do you think you would have coped as a child actor now with all the social media impacting you?
I think in some ways it's much harder because of social media. In some ways, I think it's a little bit easier because we understand now. Like when I was a kid, it was okay for grown adults, for critics, to talk about how they thought a child was ugly, or they thought a child was untalented, or they thought a child was a brat. You would see child actors in tabloids all the time. Macaulay Culkin was always being mentioned in tabloids. Lindsay Lohan, they Britney Spears, they haunted those girls. So it was, now I think we realize that that's not okay. But I do think that the temptation of social media, you know, it's sort of an instant, you know, dopamine rush when you get somebody commenting on it. And that's hard, and that can be addictive. And I hope that I would have had people around me like I do now who will say, like, hey, why don't we do this for you? Why don't we handle the social media? Because I personally don't think that child actors these days should have social media, at least not ones that they operate themselves. I don't think that they should be forced to go to press junkets. I don't think that they should be to do any of the things that they don't want to do. I think that they need to be living the lives of normal kids as much as they can. And yes, of course, that's going to be difficult, but I think they need to really keep in mind who they are, because there's the them the world knows, and then there's the them that, you know, their good family knows, and their, you know, maybe their spirituality, their religion knows, their friends and like the people that are closest to them know. And so I think that that's something that people need. They need to be that down to earth. So yeah, long story short, I think it's easier in some ways because there's more empathy, I think, and there's more understanding for what we go through, but it's also more difficult because social media is very hard for everybody and, you know, for every kid, and not just a famous one.
Very well said. Here's a question. Yes, round of applause for that. Beautifully said.
Thank you.
We've got a question here on the left.
Hiya, what's it like to see films that you were in getting adapted in different ways?
Sorry, we can't hear you.
What's it been like seeing films that you were in when you were younger be adapted now? So with the new Matilda film that's come out, it then became a musical. There's a Mrs. Doubtfire musical coming out. What's it like to watch that as an adult now?
I mean, I can't believe I wanted to see the Mrs. Doubtfire musical, but COVID got in the way. My friend Lisa, who played my sister in Mrs. Doubtfire, she said, "Why don't we go see it? We'll get all dressed up. It'll be really fun." And we wanted to, but unfortunately, we couldn't get out there. Flights were canceled, so we were a little bit sad about that. I mean, Matilda the musical is a separate thing because it's not based on the movie at all, and so we have no association with the movie, with that musical. But what I try to keep in mind is it's a completely different interpretation, you know? And so I can look at it like, oh, this is the thing we made, and it's separate, and I'm really proud of it. And this is the thing they made that is a different interpretation, and good for them. You know, I'm not going to be like angry or jealous about it. But I will be like, yeah, good for them. It's a different interpretation, and I hope that people like it. So sometimes people would say like, oh, shouldn't you play a part in the musical? Shouldn't you play a part? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't really have any control over it. And I think they're kind of trying to do their own thing. So, you know, I just give them my blessing and look at it as a different thing, a fun but different thing.
Great question. Another one here.
So you've done a lot of great movies, a lot of TV shows, and you're a fantastic author now. But what's next for Martha Wilson? What's next?
A lot of things. I mean, I definitely want to write more. I definitely want to do more writing, fiction, nonfiction, all kinds of things. What I really love now is I really love doing any kind of voiceover projects and audiobooks. I've been doing a lot of audiobooks. I think I've done maybe 12 or 13 in the past year, probably closer to 15 by this point. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do because it feels like doing an entire play by yourself. And it's really fun to be able to be like the hero and the villain, to be like both sides of a romance story, to, you know, be a parent and a child, to play all of those characters by yourself. It's so much fun. I really love doing radio plays, things like that. I really want to do more of that. I mean, if the right film or TV project came along, I might do it, but it's not necessarily something I'm pursuing because, you know, Hollywood is very difficult and it's not, you know, and it's competitive. So I think that that's something that I might do, but it's not something that I'm actively pursuing right now. I like to do voiceover, I like to do writing, and I like to do conventions, clearly, and I'm having fun doing those things.
Do you have a favorite voiceover that you've done?
Oh, let's see. I definitely have a couple. Some are coming up, so I can't quite talk about them yet. But let's see. There was a show I was in called Hell of a Boss that some of you might know that was very, very fun. And it was really fun being in Big Hero 6, the series, because I got to say that I was an actual, factual Disney villain. And I even had a friend make me a shirt that said Disney villain on it.
Any more questions for Mara? We have time for just a few more. Oh, yes, thank you.
Hi, Amara. Have you ever took anything from Matilda?
I'm sorry?
Have you ever took anything from any of the sets, like Matilda in particular?
Did I take anything? I did. I mean, I took some dresses, but they don't quite fit me now. And I still have a hat that, usually when you're working on a project, they'll give everybody hats or jackets. And I think I definitely still have my hat. And there's pictures out there of Danny DeVito wearing it. And I might still have my jacket, too.
Collector's items. Now, what are you currently watching, if we can ask? Because we all have our favorites, right? We have different genres we love.
Yeah, what am I currently watching? Okay, well, last episode of Succession, I think, is on tonight, which I cannot believe. What else have I been watching lately? I have been, let's see. I've been listening to an audiobook called The Three Body Problem, which is terrifying and scary, and it's going to be a new show that's coming out soon. I've been watching a lot of Kunk on Earth and Kunk on Britain, which is absolutely ridiculous with Diane Morgan. It's the silliest show. I'm trying to think, what other fun things have I been watching lately? What is out these days? That's the thing.
Maisel's coming to an end as well.
Is it? That's right. It is.
Yeah.
It is. My friend Steph Shue is on that. Steph Shue, who's now Best Supporting Actress winner. My friend from university. Not to name drop or anything, but she's wonderful. She's absolutely wonderful. It's nice when people get famous and they're nice, right? Yes. Yeah, she's absolutely wonderful. So yeah, I can't believe that's coming to an end too. So yeah, those are the things that I'm watching right now. I'll have to think of more things that I'm watching too.
Well, speaking of famous people, have you ever had a starstruck moment? I mean, you've been in the presence of legends, but maybe when you're a little older, like at a Comic-Con, anyone that you've really been like, oh my God.
David Tennant was one. David Tennant was one for sure, and I mean, yeah, he was one that But the thing that I thought about with him is that he was just so incredibly nice. And I saw, I saw him, people gave him, stacks and stacks of fan letters. And, he was reading through everyone and really taking the time to let it affect him. And he was so kind. And he told me that his kids had watched Matilda, and that made me very happy. But I totally embarrassed myself today because, we were talking about people we knew. And I was like, oh, yeah, David Tennant is so nice. He's the nicest guy. And then, his father-in-law turns around and he's like, yeah, but he's terrible to his family, isn't he? And I knew that he was married to a doctor's daughter, but I wasn't sure which doctor. And so for a second there, I actually believed him. And I was like, oh, no, is he? That's terrible. And he just looked at me, and everybody started laughing. And I was like, oh, no, wait. Oh, my God. And so I massively embarrassed myself in front of him. And But he took it in good stride, and Peter's been very nice to me. So he's very nice too. What can I say? He teased me, but he's very nice too.
They'll be on the panel after this, actually. So maybe I will not bring that up. Don't worry. Like, oh my gosh, I heard about the green room incident.
You heard how Mara Wilson embarrassed herself terribly in front of you.
Get a question here in the front row.
I know it's a bit of a strange one, but every time we watch it, it's one of my favourite films, Matilda. The big chocolate cake. Obviously, there were so many kids in that crowd. Did you all get to eat it?
Oh, no, we didn't eat any of that chocolate cake. No, you're not allowed to, because it's somebody else's. You don't touch somebody else's props. So we weren't allowed to. And the funny thing was, poor Jimmy, who played Bruce, he didn't like chocolate cake very much. So I remember asking him before, saying, what do you think of chocolate cake? And he was like, oh, it's okay. And I thought, oh, no. And then I remember, on the call sheet, when they tell you when to be there and how long you'll be there for and when you leave, somebody just put an eternity sign for him because he got so many close-ups and everything. And I remember asking him after, they finished it, I was like, so what do you think of chocolate cake now? And he got this 1,000-yard stare, like he'd seen something horrible, and he said, I'm so sick of it. But I met him at a reunion, 20-something years later, and he likes chocolate cake now. So all's well that ends well, I guess.
It's because she forced it on him. Of course he likes it.
And Danny DeVito did get me, like I said, a cake in the shape of Matilda's red hair ribbon for my birthday. And we did all get to share that. And it was as delicious as Bruce's chocolate cake, I'm assuming.
Yes. How was the Matilda reunion? Oh, my gosh.
It was wonderful. I mean, the loveliest people. People always ask, was Pam Ferris, who played Miss Trunchbull, really mean? No, she wasn't. One of the nicest people I've ever met. She just wants to talk to you about her dogs and her cats and her garden. Very soft-spoken, very gentle. And I had a few drinks with her. It got very fun. She was very sweet, and everybody was. Everybody was absolutely lovely.
Now, we talked about social media a bit. Do you know that Miss Trunchbull has actually coined the phrase athleisure, and people think that she's now a fashion icon?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The sweatsuit. It's very
I guess she
in trend.
kind of did, didn't she? Yeah, she was all about that. Oh wow.
She was the OG.
Yeah, she really was.
On your Twitter the other day, I actually laughed because you were retweeting about the death of Don Draper.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Were you a Mad Men fan, I'm assuming?
I was a big Mad Men fan, and in fact, I just met Rich Sommer, who played Harry, who's one of the grossest characters on Mad Men, the other day. And he is a girl that I went to university with, is his cousin. And so I met him at that same premiere where I saw Glenn Howerton. It's for a movie called Blackberry. It's very, very funny. And he was so kind and generous and lovely. And yeah, I was a big Mad Men fan, and my sister and I watched Mad Men, I think, 3 times during the pandemic. It's my sister's comfort show for some reason. So yeah, that's another one that I watched and I know all of.
I'm rewatching it as well. What is your comfort show?
What is my comfort show?
Whether during COVID or not.
One of them is my Mad Fat Diary. I love Sharon Rooney so much. Oh my gosh. I do like a lot of British TV. I think Peep Show holds up reasonably well in some ways, you know, maybe not some episodes, but it's still pretty funny. Kunk on Earth has become one for me too. I mean, I do have memories of watching Doctor Who when I was ill. You know, you have the flu, you put it on. I remember having to turn it off once because it was too loud for my head, and I was like, I want to watch Doctor Who, but I can't. My head hurts too much. I'm trying to think of so many other shows that I have. I've been rewatching The Sopranos lately, and I usually have to balance it with something like really nice and gentle, like Bluey, before I go to bed.
Right.
Because because I'm like, oh, this is too much. Let me watch Bluey. But I also have a lot of friends who work in animation, so a lot of animated shows are also something for me. I'd say The Muppet Show too. That's a comfort show.
Classic, yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you watch Muppet Babies when you were younger?
Of course I did. I love Muppet Babies.
No one seems to remember Muppet Babies.
I
How
remember
old am
Muppet
I?
Babies. You remember
He
Muppet
does. Okay.
Babies.
But any final words for your fans? Because you've made so many great memories with us here and obviously on the big screen, and we love you so much.
Thank you for being some of the nicest fans I've ever met. Seriously, you all, I was going to say give yourself a round of applause, but I don't think that's a very British thing to do. So I will just give you a round of applause.
There we go. You can give yourselves a round of applause too if you'd
yes. You guys are all very lovely.
Yes.
You're very lovely. It's be like an American and take the compliment. You're all lovely.
And for the loveliest, please give it up for Mara Wilson, everybody.
Thank you.
One of the loveliest guests we've ever had. Keep it going. Show her some love here in Newcastle. And don't forget, she's going to be signing autographs and
I'm
taking
still here.
photos. Yes. Thank you. Keep it going for Mara Wilson, everybody.